Hello, everyone. So I know it's been a little while since I did an English 1010 video. I just wanted to do a real brief one to make sure you were on track for what the remaining assignments actually entailed, right? And so for this semester, the important thing to pass the class, right, are the journal entries. There's going to be 10 total. You might want to review, make sure that you know where those are. If you do a search for my last name, Aramini, I sent out emails that have like descriptions of all the journal entries and exactly where you can find those topics in the reading assignments. So make sure you're on top of those. The final journal entry, I'll make it due finals week or right before the end of that last school week, and then your final argumentative paper we'll make on finals week, the day that we do the final. If you need a little more time, I'm going to try and accept work as late as I possibly can, but you have to do that final argumentative paper, 1,000 words, 4 sources. Now, next week, initially on the schedule, it said today the in-class comparison contrast, 400 words. For that one, sources are optional, but I do want some kind of structure to it, and I want a thesis that you're arguing. You're making the comparison for a reason between two things. And if you look in the reading assignment, you'll find that there's a point-by-point method, and then there's a block method. So the block method would be like, okay, I'm going to talk all about this one thing, and then the second part would be all about the other thing, and then you might have to draw some comparisons to tie into your conclusion. I think in general, for direct comparisons where you're going to indicate that one thing is better than another thing, it's usually easier to do the point by point. You introduce both things in the introduction, find some way to do it that's interesting, and then your conclusion can kind of tie that together and end it without repetition. We're not making it exceedingly long. You can do more than 400 words if you want, right? So I am going to send you a little exercise since I would have liked to do some peer reviews. I'm going to send you a paper that's a comparison contrast. And what happened while this person was writing is that their topic kind of changed by the conclusion. So the conclusion and the introduction really belong to two different papers. I'm also going to send you the revised one, but I don't want you to look at it first. I want you to read the bad paper, right? And it's missing transitions, it's missing unity, and it also has some real technical and grammatical issues as well. So I'd like you to try to fix that, right? And then you can look at the revised one I sent you. Now, I tried to do the revision. I tried to change as little as possible and still make it work a little better. And so what I wanted to talk about if we had class this week would be transitions. So much of organization in papers is actually based on good transitions. So two things that don't seem related. You can either move them around everywhere, right, and try and say put them in the right place, or you can create a transitional statement that says something like, well, this is true. We should look at this here. And so you get that sense of connection and organization, even if it wasn't there in the first place or it seems random. And so with this sample little assignment, you're going to notice that somebody shows up in the conclusion who was never there, right? How do you deal with that? Can you just fix that with the transition, or do you need to write that into the introduction? So I do want to see a unified paper, right? The effect, that final effect, it should really have an impact there, okay? So the comparison contrast, you're comparing two things, you are making a thesis statement. I would like you to look at this assignment that I'm going to send you here. Now, one more thing. The argumentative paper. You are persuasively arguing something from a point of view that you could actually convince someone. So there are sample topics. I'm going to send you more sample topics for that, though. Okay, so I'll be sending that very soon so you can get started on that. So that's the end of the semester, right? So make sure when you're looking, I haven't graded the exposition papers yet, but when you're looking at your grades, make sure that at the end of the semester you've turned in all 10 journal entries, that you've turned in a narrative essay, an exposition essay, a comparison contrast, and an argumentative. That's what you need to do, right? The rest of the homework assignments, yes, of course you should do those, but those are the big things that are major components of the grade, and if you miss any one of those, it's going to adversely affect your grade. So if you have any questions, please email me. As far as argumentation goes, successful argumentation relies on good sources, which is ethos, right? You have some sources that are credible and reliable there. It relies on logical structuring, which is logos, and it relies to some degree, or it can rely on pathos if the topic lends itself to that emotional kind of appeal to the reader. So you're making appeals to your reader that are designed not to alienate them, but to kind of get them on your side. So the last two essays do have kind of a thesis-based argumentative approach. The comparison contrast, you're making a claim. Now, it's so short that you should probably stick with a lot of the details there. If you want to use a source to make the comparison, you can. It's not required. The argumentative, I'm going to require 4 sources. So I'd like you to start thinking about what you want to write about. And if you can, right, go ahead and shoot me a brief email, and I will go ahead and let you know if I think that, you can proceed with that topic. I mean, for the most part, I'm open. There are 2 I really don't care for very much. The abortion topic, just because it's so polarizing, right? That you're never going to convince someone who's, let's say extremely rigorously religious that life may not start at conception, right? Just as you're never going to convince someone who firmly believes that only one person is involved in that equation there, that there might be more than one, unless some life-changing event happens to either of those individuals. So I don't think it's a very fruitful topic to argue, really, right? Because you're either preaching to the choir or you're butting your head against the wall. The other one I never have really liked too much, even though I've let people do it in the past, is the legalizing drug one, because invariably it turns to alcohol's worse. Well, you just wrote a paper on prohibition, really, right? So if you're going to do something like that, try and actually delve into the positive benefits of what you want to do rather than talking about something else, right? Which is almost like a straw man kind of approach there. Okay, we're also going to talk about logical fallacies very soon. An argumentative paper should employ logic. So I'm going to send out a little list of them very soon. I think there are some in that argumentative chapter. So you get things like ad hominem, where you attack, a person rather than an idea. A straw man, where you set up like the weakest part of your opponent's argument, or you misrepresent it in some way and deal with that and pretend like you've defeated the whole argument. Ad hoc is where you're constantly changing your position so you can't be defeated. There's a lot of them, right? The slippery slope, where you say, oh, if we allow this, then chaos is going to ensue down the road. That's a very common one. If you're going to make statements that make your topic seem very important, try and be reasonable and realistic. Not every topic is going to result in the death of humanity, right? What would? Well, there are some things that actually might, right? As we're seeing now, maybe. But in general, most things won't actually result in this huge catastrophic change to society that will doom us all. So try and be reasonable with those argumentative papers there. I am going to be catching up with grades soon. I had some internet problems this past weekend, but I think those are resolved now. So if you have any questions, let me know. Remember, right? By the end, those 4 essays. So the 13th is when I would like that comparison contrast turned in by midnight on the 13th of April. The argumentative paper, which is longer, 1,000 words, you start working on, and then that will be due finals week. We are going to take a final, right? But it's not worth that much of the grade. And then the journals, right? I'm going to collect those, finals week as well, more or less. So if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know. I hope everybody is doing okay, and I look forward to hearing from you.